The chair recognizes the honourable member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I thank Almighty God for this opportunity to be in the House of Assembly, speaking primarily on behalf of the people of Marco City, to whom I'm eternally grateful for this opportunity to speak about and work with you on you and your children achieving your dreams and your aspirations. Today, I join with colleagues in discussing the 2024 Local Government Bill. As has been said by my colleagues before me, it is our intention to support the Local Government Bill 2024. And we do appreciate that there are dimensions of this bill that continues to move us in the right direction relative to bringing government closer to the people. But as is customary with this administration, there are also some worrying signs in the bill that we have put on the record and will continue to do so. Madam Speaker, when we offer criticisms, it is in a constructive way. That's how we have functioned consistently in this House over the course of the last 3 years, Madam Speaker. We oppose on a number of occasions, but we also propose where the government ought to go, or when we take the chair, as we fully expect to in the not too distant future, where we will take this country, Madam Speaker. And the strategy of this administration, one of those strategies is to say to the public that each time we offer a constructive critique, that we are talking down good ideas or things that are working. The second part of that failed strategy is to seek to convince public servants that when we criticize a bill or a policy of this government, it is really a critique of them, and therefore we are talking down to public servants. We believe, to borrow from my good cousin in Freetown, we believe the Bahamian people are much smarter than that. They know better than that. They know when we are critiquing the government because of the inappropriate or absolutely bad decisions that they are making. You know how they know, Madam Speaker? Because they are living under the tyranny of some of the colleagues opposite who bully public servants, attempt to beat them into submission so that they're not showing up to work sharing their best ideas. But instead, they are, in some cases, kowtowing to political figures, and worse, to some that have been hired from outside of the public service and who are lording over public servants, who are superseding them in a number of ministries, in a number of departments. Individuals who have no status other than having been hired on a contract are being elevated above a number of public servants. This is a reality today. Persons who have served this country with distinction, many of them have been brought back, and I have no difficulty. We have no difficulty with some persons being brought back. We believe, however, when they are returned, they ought to be returned with portfolios that allow them to continue to share their institutional memory and expertise, but they should not clog up a system where others who are deservedly moving upward through the system can assume the role of permanent secretaries, Madam Speaker. And so, again, this administration, Madam Speaker, unfortunately seeks to silence the opposition, and not just those of us in the House, lower and upper house, but in general, by making the point that a criticism of the Progressive Liberal Party's position is a criticism of public servants, is a criticism almost as if they are equating themselves to an infallible God, and they are not, Madam Speaker. And so today, as we talk about this bill, we are talking about the need for this government to lead, which they are failing to do in the face of multiple crises that we are facing as a country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, one of the points made just a moment ago was that there's a need for us to work together. Madam Speaker, this administration many of its members, Madam Speaker, may share a good message, but they are bad messengers, a number of them. Because in terms of Grand Bahama, the local government has sought to work with the Ministry of Grand Bahama. And so you heard the call sign, the attempt to put subliminally in the minds of the public that there are those who are obstructionists. None are more obstructionists than in the Ministry of Grand Bahama, right at the top in terms of the minister. The local government has been absolutely committed to working with the Minister of Grand Bahama. Absolutely committed. And Madam Speaker, I give you two examples. I give you two concrete examples. They are prepared to work with a government to ensure that parks are refurbished, that they are upgraded, etc. They are not standing in the way of progress. What they do require, however, is respect. In other words, if they have charge of a particular area, they ought to be engaged, not lauded over. Those days are over. Bahamians are not on that run. And they're not going to tolerate it no matter what our positions are. That's why you have some members on the other side that attempt to serve with humility because they recognize, like we do on this side, how temporary these appointments and elected positions are, Madam Speaker. And furthermore, that's one example, just the parts. The second example is recently the local government, which we thought was incredible. They put in place a location where the various agencies that are working for disaster preparedness and mitigation and adaptation in the aftermath of climatic events, that they can operate. Madam Speaker, we didn't do it when we were in government. We didn't create that space. We used government facilities, and to a large extent, it worked. This administration hasn't done it, but yet this government sought to obstruct these persons by them creating a space where all of those agencies can work in tandem, Madam Speaker. Okay, you're wise to say that. I think you should let me continue, actually, but go ahead.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Pintard.
The plaque and put you on it? Oh, sorry, my apologies. Sorry.
To go down this line with the Freeport City Council establishing an EOC on Grand Bahama Island. The Freeport City Council represents the city of Freeport, not the island of Grand Bahama. Anything to do with disaster relations falls under the remit of the Disaster Risk Management Authority for the whole island. So how could the city of Freeport operate an EOC? So this EOC was not approved by or sanctioned by the Disaster Risk Management Authority. The EOC was normally held in the Ministry for Grand Bahama, or sometimes it was in the C.A. Smith building. This time, the Disaster Risk Management Authority decided that it should be in the Ministry for Grand Bahama. So if the City of Freeport Council took it upon themselves to create an EOC that they did not have approval to create, then that's on them.
They think they're the central government. That's
Thank you, honourable member. Marco City, you may.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to say now what I said then as I spoke at that ceremony, along with one of our senators from Pintard's Point. Again, we were all there to support this initiative, to again assemble those persons who are working on behalf of the people of Grand Bahama by creating a space. And Madam Speaker, if there was any confusion around the space and its possible use, dialogue is an amazing thing and has a way of remedying that, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, here's the real issue. Here's the real issue.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Pine Ridge.
Thank you. Yes, communication is key. But did they communicate any of them this to the Ministry for Grand Bahama, or to local government authority, or to disaster risk management? They did not. So communication is two ways, and they did not communicate.
they do everything they can.
Thank you, honourable member.
Madam Speaker, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot from that issue. The people of Grand Bahama clearly understand that there is a tremendous amount of arrogance that is in the Ministry of Grand Bahama. And on occasion, and so, Madam Speaker, what is happening is confidence in the work of the government is being eroded in Grand Bahama. And the only reason we raise it, we're not necessarily trying to provide the member with advice. We are simply saying that we are concerned because when they do not function effectively, all of the people of Grand Bahama are negatively affected. And arrogance has a way of putting you in opposition, Madam Speaker. And so again, Madam Speaker, this is not a point of order. It's not a point of order. Arrogance pervades, and that is precisely why there is an issue. There's an issue in Pine.
Can you please strike that from the record? Arrogance? Can you accept arrogance? What arrogance are you talking about? Are you talking about arrogance with the fact that the Freeport City Council does not work with the Ministry for Grand Bahama? The Freeport City Council has stopped Wi-Fi in the park. When we did go ahead and they block us from utilizing the park during the youth march.
They take the name of Charlie Softly Rubens off his park and now want to put another name on it.
So as far as we're concerned, the Freeport City Council has not been working hand in hand with central government in order to make things happen.
Thank you,
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, it is so fortunate that there are in fact ministers in this government that have in fact engaged with local government because they recognize the value of local government in Grand Bahama. And Madam Speaker, local government practitioners of all political stripes were present, and not only present for that, but have a fundamental difficulty with the way in which the Ministry of Grand Bahama operates, Madam Speaker. It is a problem, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, one does not have to take my word. I would only ask you, no matter where you and I are, Madam Speaker, when the election comes, I only ask you to stay tuned and watch the message that is sent to persons who lose sight of the fact that they are elected to serve the people of our community, particularly those who are hurting. Madam Speaker, we serve all Grand Bahamians. We serve all Bahamians. That is not, Madam Speaker, the philosophical outlook of the member who unfortunately occupies that space, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, local government is extremely important because what it does is it increases the number of Bahamians who have an opportunity to participate directly in the governance of the country. And this is why, Madam Speaker, I appreciate the value of commissions, of boards, Madam Speaker, because you have an increasing number of Bahamians from all sectors, non-governmental organizations, faith-based organizations, private sector, former public servants, who are able to serve in a way that benefits our country. In the same vein, Madam Speaker, when you look at local government, here is yet another opportunity for additional Bahamians to play a pivotal role in directly impacting conditions on the ground in their community. One of the reasons we say that this bill moves in the right direction, but it is not transformational, Madam Speaker. This is an incremental move. You see, Madam Speaker, if you take the provision that now local government officials and practitioners are able to collect some fees, that's a step in the right direction. But it does not go far enough, Madam Speaker, because it's the same bill that in it being repealed has removed, it appears, and they can speak to it in their wrap-up, the ability to collect other taxes, including real property tax, unless I misread the bill, Madam Speaker. In one sense, it seeks to allow practitioners to collect some fees, but it does not go far enough in terms of empowering them. In fact, one of the complaints across the Bahamas is this fact. And that is that many persons feel as if they can circumvent local government and go to Nassau to have approval for things that ought to be approved in the local jurisdiction. And so, Madam Speaker, when persons hear this administration, as the member for Central and Saudi Lucha did, talk about transparency and what the bill has the potential to do, what we do know is the bill, when implemented, is governed or presided over by the Progressive Liberal Party. and transparency is not going to be one of their hallmarks when people in the future look back at this period. In fact, the very things that have been mentioned by the member for Central and South Eleuthera talking about the Procurement Act, that is foreign to them. In fact, he happens to sit conveniently on the side of the member for Fox Hill, who speaks truth for the PLP and says, listen, we ain't on your run with this Procurement Act. We went on the run when we put it in place. Secondly, we're not on run with the new version that we have just put in place. They weren't supporting the one that we left in place, nor are they supporting the one that they have put in place. So when the member talks about, again, their commitment to procurement and how it will be manifested through local government, it's laughable. It's laughable because, in fact, within the portfolio of the member for Central and South Eleuthera, there are numerous contracts, and quite possibly, Madam Speaker, quite possibly the majority of the large contracts that are within his remit have never gone through the process that he has indicated. I said quite possibly indicated they have.
Central and South Eleuthera.
You got to bring them. Yeah, no, Madam Speaker, the member can't make that accusation, though. He can't make that accusation. Oh, you did? Well, Madam Speaker, I would like for the member to take that from the record.
Madam Speaker, I challenge the member for Central and South Eleuthera. Madam Speaker, I want to say this as simple and as clearly as possible. To bring into the House of Assembly the various large infrastructural projects that he and his government has signed and lay them on the table so that we all and sundry can see the terms of all of those contracts. Madam Speaker, I'm not a betting man. But Madam Speaker, I strongly suggest to you that he will not lay them today. He will not lay them next week. He will not lay them in the month of December. He will not lay them in January. You know why we know that, Madam Speaker? Because we have been asking during the question and answer period, and we've had so few because they keep ducking it. Every second Wednesday, they find something else to do, Madam Speaker, and that's why we appeal to you, Madam Speaker, to say, Madam Speaker, in light of their unfairness, bring parity into the House by giving us the opportunity to do our jobs by asking them the question. That's why we could say boldly that the member for South and Central Eleuthera, in tandem with the Minister of Finance, refuses to lay on the table a host of contracts that they have signed. Some could be 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million, 60 million, and counting. They won't lay it. Madam Speaker, you preside over the third arm of government, and today you would not know the terms of that. That can't be right. Madam Speaker, it cannot be right that one small group of persons are aware of the terms and Madam Speaker is not aware. Because they refuse to bring, like Madam Speaker, they refuse to come home in this House and bring their school books home so we can look at the content to see if they had homework. Did they execute the assignments appropriately? Madam Speaker, I'm telling you, they did not execute the assignments appropriately. The public and us in the House can't mark their paper because they refuse to bring the paper here. That's how they function. So when they talk about local government and transparency and competitive bidding, Madam Speaker, it's a farce. It's a mirage, Madam Speaker. They are not committed to that. Not them, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, we're saying if local government is to work, both in spirit and the letter of the law, we also need an administration that's prepared to be an honest broker, to preside over a fair process that gives every right-thinking Bahamian who's seeking an opportunity to own a piece of the rock in this society, to have access to it. It cannot be, Madam Speaker, that they continue to single source in the way they are, providing, again, direct contracts with the frequency with which they are doing it. And, Madam Speaker, there may be justifiable reasons why they're doing that. We only ask you to explain to us. That's all. But, again, back to the word, in their arrogance, they don't feel a need to explain to us, Madam Speaker. That's why, Madam Speaker, today, if we shifted this discussion to talk about BPL, there are several respected members on that side, Madam Speaker, will not join in that debate. They will not perjure themselves because they know when something is wrong with a deal. They know when something is wrong with the way it is being executed, Madam Speaker. They recognize it, Madam Speaker. But there are others who are quite contented to see a select group of people create generational wealth for 6 generations unborn, while the vast majority of Bahamians have no opportunity to even put a penny. No, they eliminated that. 5 cents, 10 cents, $10,000 on Bahamian assets. On Bahamian assets, Madam Speaker. That's what they do.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Foxhill.
Say they eliminated the penny. Confess, man.
I'm sorry?
Confess. You said they eliminated the penny. Who's they? Who's they?
So we eliminated the penny.
Yes, right.
No problem. No problem. But I also said to you that it would be a wonderful thing if we were to go ahead and in a bipartisan way deal with the issue of banking fees. And I see that you appear to be alone on that side. I would recommend you could increase our numbers by coming over and joining us if you're unable to influence your colleagues. And so Madam Speaker, the member for St. Anne's made a point earlier, Madam Speaker, about local government again, on occasion being interfered with. And you saw the level of exuberance with which members on the opposite side got up to rebut him. And Madam Speaker, on the surface of it, you may have thought, there's something untoward being said. But no, he didn't misspeak, Madam Speaker. He didn't misspeak. In fact, Madam Speaker, in Grand Bahama, there was a situation where the government, through the Ministry of Finance, sought to engage in a process called sweeping of bank accounts. That is, to reclaim some funds that were on the local government account that they wanted to reclaim. Madam Speaker, finance is within its power to make those kinds of decisions. However, those decisions are conditional. One of the conditions is that you must have the signature of at least the chief consular, those signatories on the account. But they have, in the past, Madam Speaker, circumvented that process and have, in fact, and again, the minister is here, so if I'm speaking out of turn, he can certainly feel free to correct me. And so they have what they call sweeping of bank accounts, City of Freeport. They had taken possession of the funds without the benefit of the signature of the chief consular, Madam Speaker. The administrator executed, again, a request that was made but was not duly executed according to the protocols, Madam Speaker. So when they go after the member, Madam Speaker, for St. Anne's, the reality is he did not misspeak. This is a government that is given to overreaching. So they could put in place local government, but their goal is to control even the minutia that they engage in, Madam Speaker. And so that is, even the simplest of assignments and tasks that they carry out, this administration is prepared to interfere with. And I don't need to convince the members of the backbench here. They all suffering the same fate, Madam Speaker. All of them are suffering the same fate many of the Bahamian people are suffering. Where again, if you are not powerful, if you're not fit, if you don't fit a certain description or a pride of place in the organization, again, you find that your words, your opinions they are irrelevant, Madam Speaker. And so we are speaking for those Bahamians. That's one example, Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Nassau Village.
Nassau Village isn't experiencing that, so it asks that the member retract that.
It's always good to have a good godfather who presides over you and look out for you, my brother. I'm happy for you. God bless you. Madam Speaker, I would like to. Madam Speaker,
Godfather's right now with the M4.
Madam Speaker,
Godfather who?
ask Kingsley.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Nassau Village.
Member withdraw it. But it speaks to his vision of young people in Parliament, and I hope that the young voters recognize that.
Madam Speaker,
I don't know.
Madam Speaker, we would ask the members that as they look at this bill, because we did not see it explicitly expressed within the context of the bill. There are many local government employees, and I hope that the minister in his wrap-up would address this issue. Many of them have an uncertain present and future, given the fact that the employment-related issues surrounding these local government workers have not yet been resolved. Now, Madam Speaker, it is my hope that the minister will address this issue. Whenever we run into employment issues, Madam Speaker, I would write the member for Golden Gates, and I must say, Madam Speaker, she's responsive to the request that we make, Madam Speaker. But again, once again, we put on the record, there is a need for us to address the issues relative to the workers in local government and to provide some degree of certainty in terms of what their future will be, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, one of the benefits of us fixing local government or strengthening or empowering local practitioners is to ensure that we have greater efficiency and effectiveness within the public service. One of the challenges the Bahamas is having is that the criticism is fierce and frequent from both local investors and international investors in terms of how difficult it is to do business in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And so when members on this side raise those issues, the government takes everything personal, and they take everything personal. The reality is we need to improve the governance and improve it in a way that we are able to empower so many more Bahamians who are struggling. Madam Speaker, it takes too long many times to simply get a response from finance and in a timely fashion get a TIN number. It is a challenge. Sometimes, Madam Speaker, so much so that cash flees the jurisdiction. When people are waiting, if you're buying a piece of property, for example, Madam Speaker, and you wish to reside in the Bahamas, cash your lot with us, and it's taking you 6 months. And I'm told, and the member for St. Anne's would know this better than me with all of the transactions that he carry out, it could take a year. And if that's your first transaction in this jurisdiction, what is the likelihood of you speaking up the jurisdiction to others when they wish to also do transaction? Madam Speaker, we need to be more efficient and effective. We need in Grand Bahama, as with other family islands, but especially in Freeport, to create that true one-stop shop, that when persons get approval in 9 out of, if you want to be conservative, 8 out of 10 businesses, that there should be very little reference to, again, the decisions that somebody may wish to make in Nassau. Because some of these are business enterprises that you should be able to approve in Freeport, and it is a done deal, business is up and running, as opposed to having to come to New Providence, again, to end up in cabinet, to be deliberated. There are cases where that is necessary, Madam Speaker, but I would argue far too many cases where that's being done. It should not be done. And if we're going to be competitive in this region, in this globe, it is important for us to be more nimble. Local government is one pathway to us being more nimble. Let us truly educate all of the practitioners, go through the training courses, but empower them so that they are in a position to make substantive decisions that could make a difference in the transformation of our islands. Madam Speaker, one of the other issues that are of great concern to us when you look at the whole issue of local government is that this administration, I just pause for members of the public who are home, the amber light alert is going off, and we pray, Madam Speaker, that God would be with whichever individual or family that's being identified that may be in need of intervention. Madam Speaker, we are concerned that this administration, they are quite contented, Madam Speaker, to take credit for things that their former iteration of the PLP would have implemented, but are very slow to ascribe credit to things that would have been done by the Free National Movement. I want to say this just in a global sense, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Progressive Liberal Party does not have a monopoly on caring for the average Bahamian. They do not. In fact, Madam Speaker, nor do they. There are periods where the most fundamental help offered to Bahamians came through the Free National Movement. We're discussing one of them, local government. The movement of the work week to 40 hours, again, under the Free National Movement. David Thompson and the late Archie Nairn, outstanding Bahamian, God rest his soul, and the former Prime Minister, Hubert Alexander Ingram, crafted any number of pivotal policies and pieces of legislation, but one that stands out is the local government piece of legislation. And as you know, Madam Speaker, David Thompson is a former member of Parliament 3 times in Marco City. In Marco City, yeah, they were good Bahamians. They're nationalists. That's why I believe I got their support in the last 2 elections, because real, no real. And one of them you all booted out, by the way, because they had an independent thought in their head, and that was not accepted around the table. And so, Madam Speaker, it is important that we stop this level of tribalism. Again, where one side seeks to ascribe unto itself that all of the sensible policies or legislation that has been put in place that they're responsible for. And so, Madam Speaker, in my last few minutes, I want to talk a bit, Madam Speaker, about some most unfortunate statements made by the Prime Minister. The member for Cat Island, Madam Speaker, sought to blame Bahamians. And of course, he indicated how long it has been since he has left his humble beginnings, his humble roots, Madam Speaker. That he and a few of his colleagues, Madam Speaker, they have lost sight of the level of suffering that Bahamians are going through. And that can happen, Madam Speaker, when you've been in politics a very long time for some of them, when you are constantly in a nice air-conditioned car, the window is seldom down, when life is much better than it was 30 years ago or 40 years ago. But, Madam Speaker, it is wrong to blame somebody who is hurting today and to say, chances are you are hurting because you made some bad decisions. Madam Speaker, is that true in some cases? Oh, of course. But, Madam Speaker, it can't be true generally when you are the one who causing the electricity rate to go up. Yeah. The high electricity rate they're paying is the Davis-Sayers electricity hike, Madam Speaker. They are responsible for electricity bills being high and has been an albatross around the necks of Bahamians, Madam Speaker. Yes. So any number of expenses that people are experiencing today, the increased tax and the burden that it has put on Bahamian is a result of the mixed up priorities of this government. And so the government now is on a money grab through its fees, the levies, the taxes, to claw back from the Bahamian people, both residents and businesses, because they have squandered, in many ways, the resources that they have raised through the burdens they put on the backs of Bahamians, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, as we support this bill, we also sound the alarm that this administration is out of touch. And we want them, Madam Speaker, to appreciate the suffering that exists in this country. We want the Minister of Grand Bahama, when her colleagues come to town, to drive with her just before the bridge to look at some people who never returned to their home after Dorian, to drive over the bridge in the community that I live and look at the amount of residents who could not make it back, to drive throughout Grand Bahama and see the amount of blue tarps because people's homes still need to be repaired. And this government has touched very few homes in Grand Bahama and have paid even fewer contractors who have done work, Madam Speaker. And the same thing is true right over the hill here in New Providence, Madam Speaker. The inner city area has been loyal to the Progressive Liberal Party, but they have not been loyal to them, Madam Speaker. We have members of Parliament who you hear beat the desk even harder than the members on the front bench. But, Madam Speaker, we know what that's about. Many of them, this administration has put them on the bubble, have tapped them on the shoulder and tell them, we ain't letting you go next time. And so an audition, Madam Speaker, is going on in the House right now, Madam Speaker. Some of the members who are speaking, it's all about, Chief, are you on side? Give us a chance. Give us a chance. But Madam Speaker, their individual or internal politics should not interfere with the execution of their job, Madam Speaker. And I close with this, Madam Speaker. I close with this, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are still waiting for the hotel to be sold, Madam Speaker. The hotel, Madam Speaker, has just recently gone back around the table, Madam Speaker. The infighting in the PLP and the interference, Madam Speaker, of some ministers who come from Nassau to Grand Bahama has slowed the rate of the sale of the hotel and the airport, Madam Speaker. And notice, Madam Speaker, there's no point of order. Nasuvian ministers who have flown into Grand Bahama have slowed down the pace of the airport and slowed down the pace of the sale of the hotel. In fact, they do not value the contribution of the minister to Grand Bahama. That's why they are dominating the discussion, Madam Speaker. And so having said that, Madam Speaker, Marco City joins with colleagues in supporting this legislation as we serve a warning on the Progressive Liberal Party, Madam Speaker.